We're moving back to my parents' house next month." When my husband Ben made this announcement to his sister-in-law Holly, she seemed ecstatic. Her reaction took both Ben and me by surprise. On the day of the move, I received a barrage of phone calls once I finished unpacking. "Your new address is?" Holly had made a mistake without hearing out the story and was subsequently plunged into despair. "My name is Jane, 35 years old. Just a regular office worker. I live with my husband Ben and our child who is in the 4th grade. We both work to support our life and have a great relationship as a family. Our life was smooth sailing. One day, Holly came to visit. At first, she had politely said that she just came over to hang out, so we warmly welcomed her. However, she started coming over every few days without a call, and her attitude gradually became more arrogant. Holly knew I finished my work on time. She'd time her visits accordingly, making herself comfortable and helping herself to food and drink. At her worst, she even ate the kids' snacks. I tried advising Holly about her actions, but she wouldn't listen. Instead, she'd become outraged and impossible to handle. Recently, she had been coming over every day. Ben and I were constantly worrying about how we could stop her from visiting. "Hey, you didn't buy anything today, even though you knew I was coming?" I could almost hear myself sigh in response to her. I almost let out a sigh at her acting so. "I didn't buy anything. If you want something to eat, please buy it yourself." As soon as I spoke these words, Holly began to yell at a deafening pitch. "Don't mess with me, I'm a guest. You should treat me. Besides, this is your house, isn't it? It's common sense for you to pay for everything." She would shout these words at the top of her lungs, thinking that becoming aggressive will get her way. She was an incredibly selfish and troublesome person. "Holly, we didn't receive any call about you coming. Isn't it common sense to call before coming if you want to be treated?" At this, Holly quivered her shoulders and spilled the tea she was holding. "How dare you? You're my sister-in-law. Are you entitled to behave this way? I'll spread bad rumors about you to all our relatives." Despite being the one causing the inconvenience, she could still muster such audacity. I know Holly wasn't like this before. The first time I went to my in-laws' house to say hello, she was living there with her husband, Ken. When I was nervously greeting them, they both chatted with me in a friendly manner. Thanks to them, I could relax and talk, got warmly welcomed by my in-laws, and successfully married Ben. But when I met her after a long time, she was a different person. Even when I asked her if something happened at her in-laws, Holly refused to answer. At first, I thought I could support her, but as she started visiting us daily and behaving without restraint, I became fed up. Gradually, I started behaving coldly towards her, which made her actions even more extreme. "I want a drink. Go buy it. Now!" Holly commanded me, who was cooking, to go outside as if she was chasing me out. My bag, which was in the living room, was thrown outside. Although I was agitated and wanted to decline while picking up my bag, Holly blocked the door and wouldn't let me in until I brought what she asked for. "Please stop it. My husband is going to be home soon. Our kid will be coming back from his friend's house soon." "I don't care. If you stop complaining and go right now, you should be back in time." Holly said that, standing in the doorway like a gatekeeper, determined not to let me into the house. I gave up arguing, as it would just waste time, and reluctantly went to the nearby supermarket to buy alcohol as Holly demanded. When I returned home, as expected, my kids were back, and my sister-in-law Holly was arrogantly making my child clean up the tea she had just spilled. I hastily rushed to my child and glared at Holly. "Please never do this again. It's your spilled tea, right? Clean up after yourself." When I assertively said this, Holly started drinking the wine she had grabbed from me and said, "It's your fault for being so slow." I instructed my child to take their stuff to their room and hurriedly finished the rest of the cleaning. As I was cooking, I was getting more and more annoyed, wondering if there was a way to stop Holly's outrageous behavior. I decided to consult with my husband, Ben, about Holly. He was as angry as I was about what Holly had done to our child. He said he would call his brother right away, but a few minutes later, Ben came back frowning. When I asked him what had happened, he looked at his cell phone with a puzzled expression. "I want to contact my brother, but for some reason, the call isn't going through." Upon hearing this, I tilted my head in confusion. We wondered what might be happening on their end and discussed visiting my in-laws, but neither of us could find a convenient date due to work. Although we were anxious, we decided to visit my in-laws on a date that suited us next month and ended the discussion. The next day, I told Holly that we were going to my in-laws' house, but she didn't give us any details, and for some reason, she vehemently objected to us going to my in-laws' house. "Don't come! I absolutely won't forgive you if you just come!" As Holly yelled, we became even more confused. Why didn't she want us to go to my in-laws' house? As I was thinking about all this, I had more bad news the next day. My mom called me to tell me that my dad had been injured. "Your father fell down the stairs. It's not serious, but he was told that he needs caregiving." My mother sighed, looking distraught. I was worried and offered to go home right away, but my mother insisted, "Don't worry about it. You have children, right? Put them first before us." With that, she hung up. My parents are both over 65 years old. Even though they're retired, they work in senior jobs to make a living. If my father is injured and needs caregiving, my mother will have to support him while working. Of course they won't be able to live as they used to. I wondered if there was anything I could do for them. I ended the day's work with a heavy heart and went home. That evening, Holly came to our house as usual after the children came back from school. "I'm hungry. Isn't dinner ready yet?" She was planning to have dinner at our place, as it was a normal thing to do. I looked at Holly with a bitter expression. I wanted to discuss my parents with Ben that night, but it would be difficult to do so with Holly there. "Could you please pass on dinner tonight? Instead, I bought a cake." When I offered the cake to Holly, she frowned and glared at me. "What do you mean? You expect me to fill up on cake? That's ridiculous." "We have our circumstances too. I'm sorry, but could you eat this and go home?" I said so, but Holly reluctantly looked at the cake. I tried saying, "If you don't want it, you don't have to eat it," but she ignored my words and ate two instead and went back home. After that, I consulted with Ben, who had returned home. He suggested that we should at least send money to my parents for their living expenses, but we can't afford to support my parents' lifestyle every month. Ben said he would do more overtime, but I didn't want him to do that either. At that moment, we came up with a great idea. A good way to solve the problem with my brother's wife and my parents' situation. Ben agreed with me, and we immediately started preparing. I called my parents while my husband, Ben, started packing our belongings. Then he made a call to Holly on her cell. "We're moving back to my parents' place next month. We won't be here when you visit." Holly seemed delighted at Ben's declaration. "Well, I should start preparing too." she remarked, seemingly not paying much attention to the conversation, and hung up the phone. We were left wondering what she needed to prepare for. Well, never mind. We concluded so and ended the conversation. On the day of moving, we arrived at my parents' home and started unpacking. Suddenly, we noticed a barrage of calls from Holly. I hurriedly answered the phone to find Holly sounding hysterical. After waiting for her to calm down, I asked what had happened, to which she replied in shock. "Your new place is..." I was confused and replied, "Huh?" "It's my parents' home. I said we were moving to our parents' house, right?" Holly's gasp could be heard over the phone. "Parents' home? Ben mentioned it, so I assumed you were moving here." Surprised, I immediately asked Ben, who was nearby playing with our child. Ben, seemingly oblivious, replied, "I clearly said our parents' home." "Did you explain it was my parents' home?" "I was cut off before I could explain. Anyway, it's not really a big deal, right? You also said, well, never mind." That's when I first realized there had been a huge misunderstanding. "I'm sorry, Holly, we didn't move to your parents' home. We've already finished moving. Ben tried to explain, but you hung up." As I explained, Holly started protesting angrily. "I didn't know. Explain properly. I assumed you were coming here. My plans are all messed up. What are you going to do about this?" And so Holly started to berate me. When I asked her about her plans, Holly revealed something astonishing. "I assumed you'd handle all the tedious house chores when you moved in with us." I was left speechless at her words. Ignoring Holly's derisive attitude, I explained why we chose to move. "We were having a hard time with your frequent visits, Holly. Around the same time, my mom told me that my dad got injured and needed care. When I discussed this with Ben, he suggested we move to my parents' home, as it would keep you away and we could help my mom." Upon hearing this, Holly could only say, "Huh?" in a threatening tone. My parents' home is conveniently located near our child's school, and it was also close to our workplaces, so the move went smoothly. It was like killing two birds with one stone. Although we had intended to explain this to Holly, she had hastily ended the call, so we didn't feel it was our fault. "Move here right now!" Holly demanded, raising her voice, but I flatly refused. While I didn't hate the idea of living with Holly's family, I couldn't stand the thought of being exploited. Besides, my parents are having a hard time right now. Even after explaining this, Holly wouldn't accept it. "So, you won't listen to me?" Suddenly, we heard Ben's brother's voice. Holly gasped and moved away from the phone. "Is everything okay, Holly?" As I asked this, Holly pleaded in a frantic voice. "Please, just come here now." "What do you mean?" "Just hurry." I wonder what on earth my sister-in-law is so anxious about. Overwhelmed by Holly's words, I was at a loss for words, and then she abruptly ended the call. After ending the call, I told my husband Ben about what my sister-in-law had said, and he let out a grunt. "We need to check it out, I guess," he said, offering to drive. In the midst of just having moved and being busy with various things, I informed my parents that we were going to my in-laws. Fortunately, both of my parents were at home, so they agreed to take care of the kids. Thanks to them, Ben and I could head to my in-laws together. Upon arriving at my in-laws, I immediately walked into the living room. There, I found Holly with a gloomy face, and my mother-in-law and brother-in-law with angry expressions. As soon as they noticed us, they offered us tea and explained the situation. "Actually, Holly ran away from home after we blamed her for her extravagant spending. We tried to contact her many times, but we couldn't get through. It's been tough," said my brother-in-law, glaring at Holly. I was shocked and opened my eyes wide upon hearing this. I hadn't even thought that Holly had run away from home. Ben was similarly stunned, looking at Holly in disbelief. Holly even used my savings! I called her several times to get my money back, but I couldn't reach her at all. Then she suddenly came back home today. I was surprised when I heard that you were moving in, but it seems that was a misunderstanding. Taken aback, I instinctively shook my head. Then Holly, who had been silent so far, raised her voice in protest. First of all, it's your fault, Mom, for meddling in my affairs. I spent the money to relieve the stress from you. It's not a big deal. Holly slammed her fist on the table with her face flushed. However, neither my mother-in-law nor brother-in-law backed down. Enough with your excuses. You quit your job out of the blue and decided to be a stay-at-home wife, but you didn't do any housework or cooking, did you? You dumped all the troublesome tasks on us. How can you be stressed out? That's right. You use all the living expenses that Mom and I earned on your designer bags. This is unacceptable. Something's wrong with you. Both my mother-in-law and brother-in-law raised their voices in anger with their faces flushed. Seeing their attitude, Holly, showing no remorse, looked away, not taking the situation seriously. We had no idea that things were like this at my in-laws. At this, my brother-in-law's voice grew louder. Enough is enough. It seems like you're also causing trouble for my younger brother, aren't you? If you're so dissatisfied, let's just get divorced. Don't ever interfere with us again. When my brother-in-law said that, Holly's face suddenly turned pale and she started to panic. Wait, why does it have to come to that? I was just trying to take care of you two. Hearing Holly's excuse, Ben and I sighed. It was us who took care of you. You came over every day, ate and drank whatever you wanted from our home, even had dinner, without paying for the groceries or lifting a finger to help me. When I said that, my brother-in-law glared at Holly with a sharp look. Well, that's because it's your house. I'm a guest, so why do I need to pay money? Holly spoke so selfishly that we were speechless. My brother-in-law, determined not to back down, pulled out divorce papers from the shelf. I've been struggling with this. Holly, I can't put up with you anymore. Sign these papers right now and leave. Don't ever come near this house or my younger brothers again. At my brother-in-law's intense spirit, Holly was taken aback. Also, you have to repay Mom's savings in full, okay? Let's discuss it properly through a lawyer. Upon hearing that, Holly was visibly shocked, her face turning pale. I wonder how much money she used. From her reaction, it seemed to be a considerable amount. I don't have that kind of money. Jane, you and Ben are both working, right? You should have some spare. Holly, flustered, turned to me for help. I shook my head side to side, looking at her. We just can't afford it. We have our parents' healthcare expenses, our kids' support payments, and our own living costs. You're going to have to figure this out yourself. At my words, Holly finally accepted and gave up. After that, as per her brother-in-law's declaration, Holly was required to fully repay her mother-in-law's money. She hired a lawyer and got it recorded in official documents, so there would be no escaping it. My husband and I were told about this by her brother-in-law, and he apologized again, saying, "I'm sorry for involving you in this." We felt relieved as our lingering worries had been resolved. By the way, it seems like all the food and drink Holly had in our house was also added to the mother-in-law's claim. Since there's no detailed documentation or evidence, full repayment might not be possible, but he said some of it might be returned. My husband and I thanked my brother-in-law. Apparently, she had borrowed money to cover her expenses when she had run away, and now she's living on the edge due to that debt as well. Meanwhile, I'm spending my time helping my mom at my parents' home. I don't have to worry about Holly anymore, and most of my stress is gone. From now on, I'm determined to work hard to protect my beloved parents and family.
What a stench! So ludicrous, drenched in wine. My oldest son's wife, with devilish eyes, mocks me loudly while I lie bedridden with fever. Incredibly, the she-devil had the audacity to drench me with wine while I'm sick. In my daze, her cruel actions and words pierced my heart. We're heading back to our own place soon, so make sure you clean up before we get back. Don't leave a speck of dust. Her arrogant comment made me want to suspect if she was possessed by a devil. But this attitude of hers isn't anything new. Since we started living together, she has always made me feel like an outsider, always playing mean tricks on me. Wow, that's lame, Catherine. You're so mean. Even my eldest son, joining in on his wife's behavior, claps his hands and bursts into laughter behind her. I wonder how he grew up to be like this. That's fine. I'm not bothered by this. So what about it? You'll clean up, right? Not like you have any other choice. She looks down at me with a smirk. Throughout this, she continues to haunt me with phrases like, "How filthy." Yes, I'll clean up. Unable to speak up, I reluctantly answered, biting my lips. Then I'll leave it to you. If it's not clean, I'm not responsible for what happens to this house. I understand. I was unable to talk back because of my fever, and I grudgingly replied as she wished. But my blood was boiling with anger. I was no longer able to forgive my eldest son and his wife. My name is Mary. I'm a 71-year-old homemaker. My husband, Bob, is a farmer. He's a bit of a stickler and not much of a talker, but I know he loves his family deeply, and I believe we've built a good relationship over the years as a married couple. Thanks to that, as a full-time housewife, I lead a peaceful life at home. Is what I wish I could say, but I live with my eldest son and his wife. I have 2 children, my eldest son John, who is turning 42 this year, and my second son James, who is 38. John got married late, and he brought his wife Catherine home only last year. Catherine seems to be working in a nightclub, and her flashy clothes and hairstyle shocked me at first. She's 40 this year, but she does look younger. She must be leveraging her looks in her work. She and my jobless eldest son, who is still working part-time jobs, seem to be a perfect match. My second son, on the other hand, is still single and works as an office worker. Unlike John, who has an attitude, James is a gentle and kind child. I sometimes worry that he might not be popular with the girls because he's too kind. But that's also one of James' charms, so I want him to stay that way. Being blessed with 2 children, I wish I could say that my life was smooth sailing, but my peaceful life is now threatened by my eldest son and his wife. All this started from the moment I met my eldest son's wife. 1 year ago, Catherine, my eldest son's wife, came to our house for the first time. At that time, my husband was out at a gathering with neighboring farmers, and I was home alone. To begin with, John hadn't said anything about getting married, so I was surprised when he suddenly said, "I'm bringing my girlfriend home today." Furthermore, when I asked for more details, Catherine was not just a girlfriend, but someone he had already married a month ago. I was dumbfounded and scolded my eldest son, who had registered their marriage without even telling me about it. "You should have at least brought her to greet us before getting married, right? Have you even met her parents? When did all of this even happen? Oh, give me a break. I'm not a kid. I don't need to consult my parents for everything. Stop nagging me." Looking at my eldest son's condescending attitude as if he was belittling me, I wondered where I had gone wrong raising him. As for parenting, I've done about the same for both John and James, so it's surprising that they turned out to have such different personalities. Anyway, please get your life sorted here on out. Now I don't even know how to greet your wife's parents. Yeah. I was slightly annoyed at the nonchalant tone in his response, as if he wasn't taking me seriously at all. But I swallowed my anger, knowing that it would get us nowhere if we kept arguing. As planned, John's wife came to our house later, immediately shouting, "Wow, this house is so cramped!" Indeed, our house is not spacious. We bought this second-hand house 35 years ago, did some interior remodeling, and started living here. All our friends were building new houses, so ours looked quite dated compared to others, and the old-fashioned architecture was quite apparent. But I loved our house. Thanks to my husband's hard work, we were able to buy a house that, while not our dream home, was cozy enough. We made adjustments when remodeling, while taking in our layout into consideration. Thanks to this, we have a space that is perfect for our lifestyle. John's wife mocked our house the moment she stepped her foot in here, and I just couldn't believe how she had the nerve to say such a thing. Right? It's shabby and cramped and not cozy enough. Both Mom and Dad are too stubborn to buy a new house. John, who lived with us in this house up until 15 years ago, joined in her laughter. He's renting an apartment and living there now, but doesn't he have fond memories of this house too? This was a surprise to me, but I guess it's fitting for an old lady like you. She just met me for the first time, but glared at me and made snide remarks. I was flabbergasted. Not only did she mock our house, but she even had the audacity to speak ill of her mother-in-law. I'm sorry our house is so small. As you can imagine, the time after that was hell. I was so shocked by the words from John's wife that I was barely able to serve tea or sweets, and the couple just stared at me in disbelief. Hey, at least be prepared to welcome us. Poor Catherine, you gotta welcome her with love. Spilling tea? Are you a newbie waitress or something? I endured the scene by plugging my ears to block Catherine's laughter. I'm sorry. I don't want this daughter-in-law to ever set foot in our house again. I prayed for him never to bring her over again. However, my prayer was never heard, and about half a year ago, John called me. It was bad news. Starting next week, Catherine and I will be living with you, okay? Live together? Why? Why not? There's no mortgage payment left for your house anymore, right? So it doesn't matter if 1 or 2 more people move in. You're not losing anything. I couldn't comprehend what John was saying. I was totally against living together with them. People always talk about mother-in-law and daughter-in-law issues, and I bet John's wife would hate to live together too. Above all, I didn't think I could live a normal life with John's wife. I don't want you guys to move in here. I don't want any problems anyway. And first of all, has Catherine agreed to this? Catherine says she's just fine with it. I got an okay from her yesterday, so we'll be moving in next week. Wait, just a minute. The call ended before I could reply. From next week, John and his wife are moving in here? I shivered at the thought. That night, I decided to discuss it with my husband. I don't see a problem with it. Excuse me? I'm fine as long as Catherine is fine with it. They can help with living expenses after all. I doubt that, though. My husband, oblivious to Catherine's personality, was down to have them live with us. Our daughter-in-law herself said she's fine with it, so I understand why my husband isn't opposed to all this. But the problem is that our daughter-in-law can be a rather insensitive individual. If my husband is fine with it, then I guess it can't be helped. It's our son's request, after all. I couldn't quite turn him away, so I told him that we agreed on letting him and his wife move in here. But in return, you must contribute to our household expenses, got it? Yeah, I know. His nonchalant response made me wonder if this was going to be okay, but he's already in his 40s. I shouldn't have trouble having him pay for our expenses. And so, half a year ago, my eldest son and his wife moved in with us. At first, contrary to my fears, both of them were quiet and kept to themselves. I was fed up with how they barely helped around the house, but seeing my son go to work during the day and his wife doing the same at night, I refrained from meddling. However, both my son and his wife were living on opposite schedules, and I wondered how they managed to keep their marriage going. But it wasn't my place to pry into their business. While they stayed with us, the couple hardly ever talked to my husband. Given their work schedules and lifestyle differences, it was somewhat understandable, and my husband never took the initiative to strike up a conversation either. And like that, the first month passed without any major issues. It was around that time that I approached my son about our living expenses. Living expenses? You can't seriously think I have that kind of money. What? What he said was different from what we had agreed on before, so I was taken aback. Why should Catherine and I have to pay you? You don't have a mortgage to pay off, so don't be so stingy. With that, he left for his part-time job. Oh, God. Even though I had my doubts about living together, I reluctantly agreed, only under the condition that they would help out with our living expenses. Not contributing even a cent is unacceptable. I told the same thing to Catherine, but her response was, Get the money from John. She didn't take me seriously either. I finally realized I had been played by my son and his wife. From there, things only got worse. Perhaps because they were annoyed by me being a housewife, they started making snide remarks at me whenever they got the chance. Must be nice being old. You can live freely on your pension without having to work. That's right. You should at least do our laundry since you're not working. They said that I should have it easy since I don't work, and that I should do all the chores since I'm a housewife, but they wouldn't contribute to our living expenses. Their comments were absurd. I tried to avoid their complaints as much as possible and endured their behavior. To make matters worse, they would always bully me when my husband was not around. They know that I'm getting old and I don't have the energy or the will to fight back. When will this old hag leave? It'd be better without her around. Even Catherine, who used to mock this house for being small, was making comments. Their bullying didn't stop at verbal abuse. Hey, what's with this new shelf? I replaced that old shabby dresser. It was so outdated. This one's cuter anyway. To my astonishment, they had thrown away our family heirlooms and replaced them with a new furniture while I was out. Worse, they'd chosen flashy foreign-style furnishings that didn't match our aesthetic in the slightest. Oh no, my mother's mementos. I fell into a state of despair when I saw that they had even thrown out my dresser that I had cherished and the chest I had inherited from my mother. Why would you throw away other stuff without even asking? Even I lost my temper at this point and raised my voice in anger, but they were unbothered. It's no big deal. What's the point in holding on to mementos? With every change of furniture, I was overwhelmed by the horrifying feeling that my home was being taken over. And what made me even angrier was that they didn't contribute to the household expenses at all, but they had the money to buy furniture. My husband was busy with work and didn't have time to worry about what was going on at home, so he just watched John and Catherine in silence. This is our home too, so we can do whatever we want, right? I felt an inexplicable fear toward Catherine, who smiled smugly at me. As these incidents piled up, I was mentally drained. Then, as if to add insult to injury, my husband collapsed from overwork. This happened just a month ago. He needs to rest for a while. I was shocked by the doctor's words. I felt so guilty for not noticing my husband's exhaustion because I was too busy dealing with John and his wife. Is that so? I'm sorry, Mary. No, I'm sorry. I didn't notice. You need rest, honey. I'll be back as soon as possible. My husband said that, but his condition didn't improve much, and a month has passed since then. As expected, the harassment from John and his wife worsened while my husband was away. They broke dishes, pushed me from behind, and made me fall. It was blatant physical abuse, but I was too worried about my husband to think about myself. And then the day finally came. I was doing laundry as usual in the morning. That's when I began to feel feverish. My head felt slightly painful. I measured my temperature just in case, and it was 99.5 degrees Fahrenheit. A mild fever. I was taken aback because I hadn't had a fever in years. I was probably worn out from everything I was going through. I was afraid I might faint if I continued work while standing, so I laid down on the couch in the living room. I should be fine in a few minutes. Since my son and his wife were still asleep, I thought no one would complain about me lying down for a bit. However, the living room door opened. John and his wife entered with large suitcases. "Mom, what are you doing there? Hurry up and do the laundry." Wow, she's so lazy for a full-time housewife. Pathetic. "Well, I just have a slight fever today. I'll get up as soon as I rest for a bit, so wait." "No, we can't wait. We're about to go out." Indeed, I could guess from their large luggage that they were about to go somewhere, but where were they going? "We're going to visit my parents' house." "Oh, I see. Safe travels." "Before you go, could you bring me some water? My throat is all dry." I felt relieved when I heard that they were going to visit Catherine's parents and asked them to bring me some water. Even if they were mean to me, I thought they would do at least that much. "Huh? Do it yourself." "Well, fine. I'll bring it to you." Catherine, muttering under her breath, disappeared into the kitchen. She was back after a while, and out of the blue, splash! Something splashed on my face, and I was left speechless. "You reek! So funny, all covered in wine." Catherine, with the eyes of a demon, looks down on me and burst into loud laughter. She had splashed wine on me while I was laying down sick. With my consciousness fading, her heartless words and deeds pierced my heart. "We're going back home now, so finish all the chores by the time we get back. Don't leave a speck of dust." Her comments are so harsh, I am convinced that she's possessed by a devil. "Wow, that's lame, Catherine. You are so mean." Even my eldest son, joining in on his wife's behavior, claps his hands and bursts into laughter behind her. How did he end up like this? He's not my child anymore. Now I'm sure of it. "No problem. This is nothing. So you're gonna clean the house, right? Not like you have any choice anyway." She looks down on me. "Ew," is all she says. "Yes, I'll do the cleaning." Unable to fight against her, I replied, biting my lips. The house better be clean by the time we get back. If not..." "Okay." I was down with fever, so I reluctantly agreed to her. But deep down, my blood was boiling with anger. I couldn't forgive my eldest son and his wife anymore. Catherine, who had splashed wine on my face, hastily left the house with John. The bitter frustration and the smell of strong wine made me grimace, but my condition only worsened as time passed, and I couldn't even get up to wash my face. Lying down, unable to do anything, right when my consciousness began to fade, I heard the front door open. "I'm home." The familiar voice made me open my eyes in surprise. "Honey?" "Mary, what happened?" My husband, seeing me lying weakly on the sofa, immediately rushed over to me. "What is this smell? Did something happen?" "Catherine and John did this to me." Upon seeing my beloved husband's face suddenly, I couldn't contain my emotions, and I confessed everything that the two had been doing to me. It had been a while since the last time I saw my husband. In the middle of it all, I couldn't hold back my tears and started crying like a child. "I see. I'm sorry I never noticed." "No, I'm sorry for not telling you properly, but why did you come back?" "The doctor told me I could go home because my condition has improved. I wanted to see you as soon as possible." "I see. Thank you, honey." After that, my husband gently wiped my wine-soaked face with a damp towel and carried me to the bed. He tucked me under a warm blanket and even prepared a light meal and a drink that was easy on my stomach, which brought tears to my eyes. I can't stand it anymore. Although they are our son and his wife, I can't tolerate them anymore. They don't contribute to the household expenses, and on top of that, they are just awful. You're right. After hearing about all they did, I completely understand you. We can't live in this house anymore. My husband and I were enraged. We contemplated how to fight back against John and his wife. Ideally, we'd like to kick them out of this house, but they wouldn't just leave because we asked them to. So we had no other choice but to take a different approach. To put it blunt, our plan was a forceful operation. It was something we had been slowly putting into action. Finally, the time had come for us to execute it. Surely it would be a very effective strategy against them, who had constantly ridiculed me and my home. I met my husband's eyes and nodded. It's showtime. Over the course of the several weeks, we carried out our plan, and things had finally settled. One day, we were relaxing on our living room sofa when my phone rang. It was from John. I chuckled. Finally, the moment had come. Swallowing hard, I answered the phone, trying to calm my pounding heart. "Hey, you old hag, what the hell is going on here?" Startled by the sudden barrage of abuse from the other end of the phone, I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear. "Well, what's the matter? Aren't you at Catherine's parents' place? We just got back home, but why is our house gone?" John's frantic voice was so funny to me, I struggled to hold back my laughter. "Well, you remember how Catherine told me to leave the house cleaned by the time you guys got back? So we did. We cleaned the whole house. Not a speck of dust left, right?" Yes, I took Catherine's word and used it against them. Sold the house and moved out, leaving nothing behind. It was something we had been considering ever since my husband collapsed from fatigue. We were getting older. Farming is labor demanding. We considered giving it up and living out our retirement years in peace. I thought my workaholic husband would oppose the idea, but he was so affected by his collapse that he readily agreed to my suggestion. We always had inquiries about having our land for sale, so we were able to sell it with no problem. Things moved quickly after that, and before we knew it, our house was completely gone. We loved our previous house, but it was much easier for us to sell it off than plan about who to pass it down to. We moved to a rental apartment in the neighboring state. We thought it would be hard to take out a mortgage for a house at our age, so we agreed that a rental would be fine. And now I'm on the phone with John from our new home. "What the hell did you do? Do you think you can get away with this? What are we supposed to do now?" Hearing the yelling from the other end of the line, I couldn't help but sigh. What the hell did I do? You guys are the ones who ruined everything for us. What are you saying? Barging into someone else's home and making a mess, not contributing to the household expenses, bullying an old woman like me. Was it fun? Call me every name under the sun. I don't care. Damn it. John grunted in anger, and I couldn't help but chuckle. They probably never imagined the house would be gone. Just the thought of them standing in front of an empty lot dumbfounded was cracking me up. "Mom, what the hell did you do?" John passed the phone to his wife. I remembered her smug smile when she poured wine on me and felt nauseous. "It's my house, and I'll do as I please. It's none of your business." "It is totally my business. We lived here too. It's our home as well." "Huh, our home? You never helped around the house or paid any bills. How dare you claim it is your place? Besides, I know something about you, Catherine." "What?" "You quit your job a while ago, didn't you? Or were you fired? Either way, it doesn't really matter. Yet you leave home every night saying you're heading to work. What have you been doing exactly?" You're cheating, aren't you? Want me to tell John about this?" "What did you say?" She didn't deny it, so I guess I was right. I had a hunch that Catherine has been cheating for several months now. She comes home from work at odd hours every day, and I started to notice a peculiar smell of perfume on her laundry, but she never wore them before. She might be able to fool my stupid son, but she can't fool me. You can't just run away when things get tough after all the things you did to us. Get out of my place right now. Fine, I get it. There's no way I can live in this dump anyway. Sounds like she has given up. With a rustling sound, she seemed to be leaving the lot. "Hey, where are you going?" "I can't stay here any longer. I'm going back to my parents' house. Goodbye." "Hey, wait a minute." John's confused voice echoed. He had no idea he was being cheated on. When Catherine left, he took out all of his anger on me. "Old hag, what the hell did you say to Catherine?" "I only told her I would spill the beans about her affair to you." "What?" The way my John fell apart after that was terrible. Unable to accept the reality, he cursed and shouted harsh words like "shit" and "why the hell?" Then he started yelling at me. "How could you do this to me? I'm your son, for God's sake. You took it too far." After all the things he did, my son was still trying to play the victim. I started to feel bad for him. He's so pathetic. But that doesn't mean I'm ever going to live with him again. My son? You are no longer my son. Oh, and one more thing. What? Your phone contract is about to end soon, so this really is our goodbye. Huh? My son couldn't even breathe right and just gawked. I had canceled my son's phone contract, which he had made me pay since he moved in. The contract ends this month, but today's already the last day of the month. From tomorrow, my son's phone will be useless. Now I can finally cut ties with you. Goodbye. Hey! Without waiting for a reply, I hung up the phone. I felt all the energy drain out of me in an instant, and I slumped onto the sofa. My husband said, "Good job," and brought me a warm cup of tea. Finally, I can sever ties with my eldest son. Just thinking about it seemed to heal all the hardships I had gone through. A week later, our intercom rang. I went up to check the intercom screen and saw my second son. The screen lets us see who's at the door without leaving the comfort of our living room. "Hey, Mom, it's been a while." "Well, if it isn't James. So nice of you to visit us. Come in." As I reached to press the open button for the door, a gruff voice suddenly commanded, "Move it! I finally found you, you old hag. Open up now." To my surprise, John popped up, even though we never gave him our address. I wondered if he hired a detective or something. "Open up? I bet you're just here to try and steal some money. Just leave right now." Keep talking like that and we'll see what will happen to this guy." John took out a blade that looked like a knife from his pocket. The sight made me shriek in fright, but I was more worried about James being in danger. I needed to do something quickly. "Bro, what are you doing?" You've been looking down on me. An office worker, you said. You make me sick." "Bro, aren't you ashamed of yourself? Leeching off Mom and Dad's money? Living like a parasite? You son of a..." Oh no, James is in trouble. Just when I blanked out in fear, I heard the blaring siren of a police car, followed by the sound of heavy boots approaching. "We're arresting you for attempted murder. Come with us." "Hey, wait, what the hell?" Through the screen, I saw John get taken down by the police with his knife still in his hands. That's as far as I saw. I'm guessing that the neighbors called the cops after hearing the commotion at our place. According to James, his brother had a crazed look in his eyes, barely recognizable as his brother he once knew. "Mom, sorry it's late, but I'm getting married." "Oh really? Congratulations." "Thank you." Receiving such joyous news from James, my husband and I were overwhelmed with happiness, and we celebrated the occasion by having a feast with him. I am more satisfied with just this child. Our eldest son can live his own separate life. My husband also seemed relieved that we were finally free of him. After that, John was taken by the police, and it was discovered that he had committed other crimes like theft and intimidation. The duration of his imprisonment is yet to be decided. Of course, he lost his part-time job. I felt profound sadness, wondering where I went wrong in raising a child who would resort to such crimes. Even though Catherine went back to her parents' home, it seems her irresponsible lifestyle hadn't changed, and I heard rumors that she was kicked out of there too. Turns out that a man she was having an affair with was married with kids, and now she's being sued by his wife. It's a disaster for her, but it's karma. Of course, John and Catherine had gotten divorced. I have stopped thinking about John and I'm moving on, heading toward a new future in our new home. Mom, this is Rachel. She works as a pharmacist at a pharmacy near my workplace. Hello, mother-in-law. Nice to meet you. Rachel, nice to meet you too. The fiancé James brought home, Rachel, was a 32-year-old woman, polite, intelligent, and instantly likable. It's going to get busy, isn't it? But I'm looking forward to it. James, Rachel, my husband and I all had dinner together, sharing laughter. One day, we'll gather around the table together again with our grandchild. Just imagining it